Hello! The last video about how to build a realistic replica of the VANT-VM Shield for Airsoft unexpectedly got very popular. Thank you very much for that. I receive a lot of comments and questions, and today I'll answer many of them. All this time I was working hard to improve the shield and make this video for you. And no, I'm not playing Stalker 2 all this time. That's not true. Today we're finishing the basic version of the Airsoft VANT-VM Shield, which now looks 100% like the real one. I'll talk about the changes I made, the new visor with an apron, and the gear improvements. I'll also share the list of materials needed for building it and explain how much it costs. But I also want to tell you why making such a realistic shield might not be a good idea, and why it doesn't make much sense in Airsoft. We'll talk about the strange rules for shields in Airsoft and what makes them ineffective.
In front of me. Okay, let's go.
All I ask is a like and subscription. All the timestamps are available below. Let's start with an upgrade. To remind you, my shield originally had a wooden visor. It was larger than the real one, gets scratched by BB's hits, and there was an annoying stripe left behind of my bad hands. I looked at several options to replace it. I even tried to make a 3D model so that my friend could print it for me. Hey! Can you print it for me? Hey, stop! Stop! As you can see, he didn't want to. So I decided to make the visor out of polycarbonate with realistic sizes and slightly new shape. Polycarbonate is great for this. It's very strong, doesn't get damaged by BB's hits, and it's easy to work with. I also decided to add slanted edge at the bottom, like the newer versions of the shield have. I used 5mm thick polycarbonate and cut it according to the blueprint. All the blueprints are in the video description. For the glass part of the visor, I used 10mm polycarbonate, because I already had it. But I don't recommend using polycarbonate that thick. 5mm is more than enough for CQB. All my blueprints are made for 5mm polycarbonate. To show you how I put it together and what parts I used, I numbered each piece and made a blueprint with sizes. Hello guys, it's me from future, and I found one problem. Here, as you can see, I'm working about blueprints with Visor for you, and I'm working about all details which you can see in the video. And the idea was that in blueprints you can see all sizes, numbers of these details, and you can make all these details, disassemble like in my video, and after it you will get the visor identical to mine. But I saw one problem. Here you can see that this detail should be 220, and on my visor it's 230. This detail should be 50mm. On mine it's 60. So I understand that this detail should be 15mm, and I created only 10mm. So this is wrong visor, it's not realistic. But maybe just my size is wrong? Now we have a shield, put it here, and as you can see it's identical to my blueprint. So all sizes are correct. And you know what? Now it have no sense to create all these blueprints with these details, because you will get a wrong visor with wrong sizes. So I think you can make correct visor without any problems. Just remember that this part should be 15mm, not 10. It was my mistake. First we start with the back part. I attach part 5 and 6 to part 1. Note that parts 2, 3, 4 and 5 stick out on the both sides. Next I glued part 2 and 3 at the top and bottom. They fit very tightly. At the front of the visor, where it's shorter, I glued part 5, 6, 8 and 9. Inside there should be a space for the glass part to fit later. I used superglue to stick everything together. It works great with polycarbonate. Then I installed the glass and covered it with the part 10 on top.
пальто на гвозде, шарф в рукаве и перчатки в карманах шепчут подожди до утра.
If there are any gaps left after gluing, you can fill them with the baking soda and add more superglue on top. The baking soda hardens right away and looks cool, almost like a welding. I thought for a long time about what paint to use. Regular or car paint would work fine, but I wanted to try something different. Someone suggested Montana spray paint because it even sticks on unprimed walls in any weather. It costs the same as regular paint, so I gave it a try. Before painting, I sanded the entire visor and covered the glass with masking tape. That was a mistake, because the superglue hadn't dried completely, and in some places the tape stuck for good. Lesson learned: don't rush when making a shield. Then I painted it. The paint went on perfectly. It looks like metal. The result more like metal than metallic effect paint. Compared to the wooden visor, the new one looks amazing. But for airsoft, this paint doesn't work well at all. It scratches very easily, even with a fingernail. Here's a comparison with the usual paint. The paint is soft and sticky. It can leave marks on things it touches. After a game, you can see that in some spots the paint chipped off. Thankfully, it's easy to remove with alcohol, so I'll repaint it with regular paint later. The polycarbonate visor turned out to be heavier than the wooden one. Even I thought the wooden one was bigger. Since wood isn't very strong and I attach it with screws, my previous visor was 1 centimeter taller than the new one. I didn't want to leave any holes, so I cut some fabric and glued wooden spacers. On the real shield, you can see that this part is separate and sewn to the main piece. So, to hide the wooden spacers, I cut a rectangle 1 centimeter larger on all sides, made a hole in the middle and glued it on. The new visor is ready. After CQB games and shooting at it, there are no scratches, only the paint come off. This visor will last for dozens of games. Also, the inside is now smooth and looks good. With leftover polycarbonate, I decided to make a handle. In real life, the handle protects the visor from scratches, like when you put the shield on the ground. In Airsoft, it has the same role. I cut out a rectangle from the same 5mm polycarbonate. Polycarbonate bends easily when heated, so I made small cuts where I wanted it to bend. Then I heated it and bent it into shape. In the end, I got a handle similar to the real one. I also made a rough blueprint for it, with approximate sizes and cut lines, and included it in the description. Next I sanded the handle, painted it. Attached it with bolts to its proper place. Since there is a soft mat behind it, the handle wobbles a bit, but it does its job and looks nice. As for its durability, I don't know. If the shield falls, the handle might bend or break. Or maybe it won't. I'm tested it and you can see the result. Guys, it will break, but also it will save the visor, so it's not so bad. Even on real ballistic shield, handle can bend from strong heat. At the very least, it will protect the visor and soften the fall. With the new upgrades, the shield now looks almost like the real thing. Some comments under my previous video pointed out that it looks a bit thinner than the real one. I'm not sure about this, because the dimensions match the blueprint. I think the size is correct, but because the real shield is sewn, it looks a little bigger. Even so, from a few meters away, it's hard to tell the difference. Now let's move on to the aprons. In the last video I didn't explain much about them, but you might notice that both of these aprons are bigger than the real ones. One even reached the ground. Why? Why did I make it so large when I said that the shield should be realistic? It should be big, heavy and realistic, and you have to make it yourself. And of course it should be looks great, not like a piece of plywood with a tape. Bruh. But don't rush to throw tomatoes at me. Here I want to talk about how effective such shield is in Airsoft, so you'll know what to expect if you decide to use one. For some reason, many players think their game with a shield will look something like this. Organizers are so afraid of shields that they create rules that almost make them useless. For example, on all my local fields I've been to, it's against the rules to use a shield without showing your head while shooting. So I can't shoot without showing my head. On one field, the rules completely ban using pistols with shields unless you put the shield on the ground.
Tarcza ma swoje osobne zasady takie, że jak niesie tarczę, to nie może strzelać z boczniaka, więc może tylko nią nieść, nie może strzelać. Jak będzie chciał tarczownik strzelać, odkłada tarczę, może wyciągnąć klamkę i z nią strzelać, ale od tej tarczy daleko nie może odchodzić, tak mniej więcej maksymalnie 5 metrów.
And of course, with the shield you can use only pistols, no to the submachine guns. And I know that I'm not the only one with such rules. That's why I'm talking about it. This is despite the fact that in 2 years of playing Airsoft, I've only seen one other shield in using during a game on my local fields. Maybe that's because they just aren't effective? I understand why organizers and players are worried about shields and riot shields. Riot shields are definitely overpowered and unbalanced. But the problem is, these rules don't ban those shields. On the contrary, the rules allow you to make a shield out of any material, weight or size, as long as you show your head while shooting. Sorry for ranting, but I dislike the fact that many people like me cannot play with shields because of stereotypes and fears of riot shields. For those who think shields are overpowered, here are the real problems you'll face when using one. First, transporting it. You have to carry this 30-kilogram thing to the field. Without a car, it's especially difficult. To play effectively, you need a team. Your weapon is weaker than everyone else's, and it's hard to hit targets beyond 20 meters. On my field, lasers are banned, so even if the rules allow shooting without showing your head, this would be ineffective beyond 15 meters. Even so, I can't aim that way because of the rules. Without a team to back you up, you're just a target for everyone to shoot at while you can do nothing for them. Shields require a trained, coordinated team that knows how to work with them. Random players from the field often don't understand shield tactics. They don't attack when needed or provide cover fire. Even with your own team, it's hard to play without proper practice.
Нету, не вижу. Но с домика в прошлый раз. Ой, ты мне по жопке попал.
Great game. The best fields for shields are long corridors without much cover. In open areas, shields can't protect you from all sides. On fields with many rooms, enemies can hide and wait to ambush you. You can't check every room without exposing your flanks or back. Some players even told me they specially hidden rooms waiting for me to pass, so they could attack from behind. Shields aren't mobile. It's hard to climb through windows or move through some doors. Sometimes you can't even fit, so you have to plan your road ahead of time. Playing with a shield requires physical fitness. Try walking for an hour while carrying 3-5 little bottles of water. This is approximate weight of my shield with all the gear. That's what it feels to play with a shield all game. So, what do you gain by using a realistic shield in Airsoft? Protection? Well, the same protection can be provided by a simple riot plastic shield. Or even a wall. Some people believe shield make you invincible, but that's not true at all. For example, when I stand with a shield, my legs are completely exposed. My head, part of my arms, and sometimes weapon when I shoot are visible. If I crouch to hide my legs, I can't move. I've done this before, but when you're crouching, mobility is zero. So, to stay protected, you have to work in a half squat all the time. That's hard enough without a shield, but with an extra 10 kilograms, it's even worse. If you turn the shield even slightly, your whole side becomes exposed. You are now a slow-moving, tight target carrying 10 or more extra kilograms. Easy to hit. And let's not forget, airsoft rifles have no recoil. Magazines hold 200 BBs, and airsoft rules count even a BB hitting a loose strap on your gear as a kill. Even in my CQB, where full auto is banned, shield users get hit all the time.
Dostał.
Sometimes I got hit in the helmet or hands by stray shots.
Dostał.
Once, someone even hit my boot while I was using a long apron.
Dostał. Do nogi.
An interesting fact: a player using a wall for cover exposes less of their body than the shield user. A wall is better because the player can use a good weapon, fully hide when needed, quickly move to another position since they aren't weighed down. Shields also come with their own natural problems. You can't see the first few meters in front of you, so I often tripped. You need to be very careful on stairs. The visor can fog up, completely blocking your view. Try to play it with fogged glasses and visor at the same time.
I don't see anything. So
Even with good rules, playing with a shield is hard. During your first games, you'll definitely die a lot.
dostałem.
And on top of all that, I can't properly use a pistol. It might seem like a small thing, but it's actually a big deal. Of course, it's not cool. Cosplaying as a special forces operator doesn't feel as exciting without a pistol. It's not effective. As the shield bearer, you usually see the enemy first, because you're in front. By the time you expose your head, aim and shoot, too much time has passed. The enemy is already hiding. Enemies aren't afraid of you. The enemies in Airsoft understands that in order for you or your group to shoot, you need to show yourself from the shield. At this time, the enemy can easily hit you. Until this moment, you can do nothing to him, and he can calmly walk and take cover. If your teammates die, then you will remain completely defenseless. You are more like a punching bag that everyone hits. Imagine a situation where enemies are hiding in a room, and you need to take them out. You can't shoot at them without exposing your head, so you'll immediately get hit. Your teammates also can't shoot without risking getting hit themselves. This means the shield can't do its main job, clearing rooms and protect people. Sure, you could throw a grenade, but in that case, why even bother with a shield? A player without a shield can just as easily check the room and throw a grenade. And most importantly, playing with a shield isn't fun. When you play as a shield bearer, you automatically become a support player. By banning pistols for shield users, organizers take away part of the enjoyment, interacting with other players. For many, this interaction and scoring kills are what make Airsoft fun. Without the ability to shoot, you lose some of this interaction and part of the enjoyment. A shield doesn't make you a Superman. You pay for protection with speed and weak weapon. But the price of not being able to use weapon at all is too hard. Here's an example. One day, one field, one game. In first round, I used a shield. In second, I used a regular airsoft rifle. Playing with a shield.
Dostał. 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 Dostałem. Dostał.
And with a rifle.
Окей, достать. О, нет! О! To było bardzo fajnie.
Which round do you think I was more useful in? Which round do you think was more fun for me? In defense of the shield, I can say that in this day I played alone. My teammates were unable to come to the game. But when I played with the rifle, I also played alone and don't even wear a plate carrier. I used a simple homemade chess rig and was still effective. Draw conclusions about what is easier and more effective to play with. Sorry for complaining so much, but you need to understand what you're getting into. I can say that shields can be effective. Make the shield bigger, lighter, add lights and a great team. That's the key to good shield play. But I'm talking about my shield. I only have one and still have little experience with it. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Playing with a shield gives you a new experience. It's unusual and makes you stand out. And a shield can be useful. In milsim games, shield can even be necessary. It's hard to imagine modern special forces without them. Shields are used in every country. Germany, USA, France, Poland. You can always find an interesting model and try to make a replica for Airsoft. Shields are popular in games. They are already part of the culture and should become a proper part of Airsoft too. In fact, these rules for shields might even be a good thing. Since you can't use a pistol, you are free to create shields of any size or weight, which opens up a lot of creative possibilities, even for making overpowered shields. If I were asked what rules I'd made for shields in Airsoft, I would remove the restrictions on weapon use and allow pistols or SMGs to be fired without showing the head, as long as the shield weighs more than 10 kilograms. If the shield is lighter, and I understand, not everyone wants to make or carry heavy shields, then the user would need to show their head or all hand when shooting. Also, the shield shouldn't be completely transparent. But I'm not the organizer and maybe I don't see the full picture, so the rules might not be the best. A small digression. Even paintball guys can shoot from behind the shield. I really no longer see any reason why shields in Airsoft need to be so limited. And yes, I'll keep using a shield. I specially made my shield heavy and with realistic dimensions. So, with good rules, shield wouldn't be unbalanced, ensuring that not only I, but everyone else could enjoy the game. I'm now thinking about making the shield bigger, since the rules allow it, but I haven't decided yet. I also want to try making other shields, like the VR6, Fackel KF, VANT-VM or even Blitz shield. I'd be happy to use a realistic shield with a small apron, if the rules were a little better. But for now I will using it with a long apron, because I'm tired of walking back to respawn so often. Finally, let's move on to the how I made the aprons. I made two. One from yoga mats and another with plywood added for weight. For the first one I cut yoga mats to size I needed. Mine is 70 cm long, so it almost completely covers my legs when I walk. Then I glued all the mats together using regular PVA glue. I cut the outside with 600 D Cardura fabric. After cutting it to size, I stretched it tightly and glued the ends with super glue. At one point I tried editing PVA glue to the center, but I don't recommend doing that. It makes the mat bend awkwardly. In the end I just glued the remaining edges. On the sides I added velcro to attach the apron to the shield. Make sure you use the correct side of the velcro. To make the second apron I added a piece of wood in the middle. I also added plywood to the sides and top. I made this apron specifically for this project, so I wanted it to be stiff and not bent. Then I covered it with 600D Cardura, like the first one. But this time I also used staples for extra durability. The rigid apron is less comfortable to play with because it's not as soft and my legs keep hitting it, plus it's heavier. My realistic apron weighed 600 grams. The large one weighed a little more than a kilo. And the plywood apron weighed more than 2 kilograms, like an airsoft rifle. All of them provide better leg protection. The plywood apron offers more coverage, but adds a lot of weight. The second one almost completely covers my legs, but makes walking harder and gets caught on rocks and stairs. I didn't like the bolts sticking out, so I trimmed them and added caps on top. This makes them look better and safer. For my vest I made a 10 by 10 cm block. I glued a small pieces together and covered them with Cardura. Underneath I attached Velcro. This lets you quickly attach the block to your gear before the game. The purpose of the block is to create some space between your body and the shield. This makes it easier to use a vest and move with the shield. However, in practice, my vest is too small, so the block doesn't make much of a difference. I also added a patch to the shield as in the photo. To transport the shield, I used a regular IKEA bag with a strap to carry it over my shoulder. I cover it with a bag on top. It even can be a trash bag. The main thing is to make sure people on the street don't realize what it is. It's hard to carry it like this, but it's possible. Now, let's talk about how much it costs to build a shield like this. Let's calculate together, and I also show you the main materials I used. Plywood sheet, $40. 2 MDF boards, $20. 3 yoga mats, $25. 600D Cardura fabric, $12. 5mm polycarbonate sheet, $16. Black spray paint, $9. 5mm plywood and a shovel handle, $15. Green and red Velcro, 5cm and 10cm, $4. Wall hook, 2 regulators and a strap, $5. Bolts, glue, nuts, screws, electrical tape, masking tape and other small items, let it be around $50. Sewing services for some parts, $17. The total comes out to $213. Add shipping costs. Let's say it's $37 and you get $250 to build the shield. If you buy everything locally and use materials you already have, you might build the shield for $150. But if you spend less than that, the quality will probably suffer. For the same money, you could buy a good airsoft rifle. Also at the time it will take you to build it. It took me more than 2 weeks. In this video I tried to tell you everything I could about the shield. I hope my complaints didn't bore you. If you have any questions, the answer can be written under this or the previous video, but I'll be happy to answer your comment just the same. Only stop asking if I'm Hungarian. For my effort, you can like this video and subscribe to the channel. In the future, I'll post more content about airsoft and shield. I'm Arthur, it's channel about airsoft. Good luck!
Okay, so what are you thinking about it? It's too heavy and it's too big to rush with it and too small to hide.